A massive update was just added to Wizard101, the beautiful island of Selenopolis. With it came an entirely new magic system, an incredible nostalgia-filled questline, and new spell trees. These spell trees are central to the game's lore. They have a lot of interesting dialogue, but they also raise a lot of questions. I'm here to cover all of that and more in this video. The last video was a lot more focused on taking explicit facts and dialogue to come up with some interesting interpretations about how it fits into Wizard101's universe. But this time, we'll be scouring the dialogue from the oldest worlds all the way up to the newest, and try to piece together a very important puzzle, weaving through historical inaccuracies and lesser-known lore to come up with a full timeline and history of all the Spiral's magic trees. Welcome to the garden. One of the first things you do upon your enrollment into Ravenwood Academy is to meet all of the spell trees there. 6 living, talking trees with immense knowledge of their respective magics. For many new players, this is the first glimpse into the unique world building of Wizard101. If you're like me, this raised many questions, like how they got there, who made them, how can they interact with magic? To answer these questions, we need to delve into the history of Ravenwood and the Spiral itself. Enter the Tree Minders, an ancient people who were the original inhabitants of the Ravenwood long before Headmaster Merlambros had arrived there. They had a deep understanding of the Spiral's inner workings and an incredible affinity for the magical arts. They discovered ley lines, beacons of magical energy flowing all around the Spiral, and they were able to use these ley lines to travel between worlds. Eventually, they discovered that incredibly potent ley lines could birth magical trees who embody the element of their ley line. We learn from the new Selenopolis questline that this results in some other unique abilities, which we'll talk about later, but the most important thing to know about these trees is that they have a duty to their element, safeguarding its magical discipline and sharing its knowledge with only those deemed worthy. These trees themselves aid in the creation of new spells. For example, Ivan the Myth Tree bears the duty of remembering all of the myths and tales from around the Spiral. At the heart of the Spiral system and watching over all of Ravenwood's spell trees is Bartleby, the World Tree. Bartleby is unique. He is the origin and anchor of the ley lines, and it is said that his roots stretch invisibly to every world in the Spiral, and in any of these worlds spell trees can bloom. Bartleby is described throughout the Spiral's lore books as a catalyst of harmony magic, which seems to be the ultimate magical force in the Spiral. He is all-knowing, able to see both the past and the future in great detail. But we do see one other knowledge tree throughout our time exploring the Spiral, named Sybil, though she's not quite the same. Obviously, she's nowhere near the power levels of Bartleby, but what makes her truly special is her connection to dreams. You see, Sybil was grown, likely by the Arcanum, with the explicit intent of being able to harness the knowledge of dreams, a seed cultivated with the very water from the dreaming. The dreaming is a mystical region we're introduced to in Wallaroo, created by the Dreamer, a cosmic entity who is best described as Bartleby's opposite, overseeing the domain of the unreal. We learn by following the main quest of Arc 4 that when Sybil sleeps, she sees the dreams of the Spiral, infinite possibilities, and only when she awakes can she realize which came to fruition. It seems like there may be more to learn about Sybil as the Spiral's story continues, and I'll be sure to keep you all updated when that happens. The first tree that we meet after leaving Ravenwood is Niles, the balance tree in Krokotopia. Niles is a very interesting anomaly. You see, in the past there was a line from Kelvin, Ravenwood's ice tree, where he mentions that Niles used to actually live in Ravenwood, but was later gifted to Krokotopia. As the game's history developed, however, this was intentionally removed, and no explanation has been given in its stead. This retcon means we're now certain that he did not come from Ravenwood according to the current writers, and was likely not created at the same time as the Ravenwood trees. Balance magic was created, or more accurately, discovered in Krokotopia from observations of Ra the sun god's use of magic. We know that the Kroks didn't discover this magic from a balance tree, so we can definitively place Niall's creation, or at least his discovery by the Kroks, after that of balance magic. This leaves us with two main possibilities. The first is that, at some point, the tree minders gifted Niles to the Kroks to aid their research. The second is that the emergence of balance magic altered ley lines in the area, or at least strengthened them, resulting in Niles' creation. The next trees that we meet after Niles are the two remaining trees in Dragonspire Academy. Back when the Tree Minders' civilization was at its peak, the Tree Minders would gift spell trees to other cultures, the one confirmed occurrence of this being with the people of Dragonspire. The Tree Minders brought 6 trees from the Ravenwood to Dragonspire, most likely through ley lines, so that their quickly growing culture would have access to the knowledge of the Tree Minders' sacred arts. The Dragonspirians already had some ancestral knowledge of fire magic, learned long ago from observing the Dragon Titan and the Drakes, but the Tree Minders wanted to provide access to the knowledge and beauty of each magical discipline. Tragically, Dragonspire was becoming increasingly militaristic, and eventually decided that with all of the knowledge of the Tree Minders, they could conquer anything and everything they desired. They sent a battalion led by the then Prince of Dragonspire to conquer the Ravenwood. They had become greedy and desired the knowledge of the original spell trees. But this conflict between the two incredibly powerful cultures would ultimately spell doom for both groups. Any surviving Tree Minders fled the Ravenwood, and eventually back on Dragonspire, the Dragon Titan was released, causing great destruction to all of Dragonspire, and leaving only 2 trees standing after the tragic massacre of fire and death. Though we learn astral magic as early as Celestia, our spell trainers are actually strange machines, and we never see any spell trees for the celestial magics, so it takes several worlds before we're introduced to a new tree in the world of Chrysalis. This tree is described as the Great Tree of Doom, and his name is Moros. While Morganth was plotting to create a new spiral order, he would wait for her to master the Song of Creation, so that he could be appointed in Bartleby's stead as the center of the Shadow Web. According to Aegon's stats, he is made of cursed shadow magic, which is interesting because it seems like shadow magic doesn't exist on ley lines like the other magics. I'm going to theorize a bit here, but we're told that shadow magic, quote, touches the true essence of the spiral and exists outside the other magics, as in it's most likely not contained in something like ley lines. Morganth's shadow web would have been a demi-physical network of shadow magic, providing organized pathways for shadow magic to condense and coagulate. It seems like Chrysalis was the first such beacon of shadow magic that she was able to create or discover, and that Moros was born of this concentration of shadow magic. We don't know much about Moros, so this is just my personal thoughts, but what do you think? So far, it seems like the trees at Ravenwood Academy were the original spell trees, and this was the most commonly held belief in the community for a while. But at the end of Imperia, as part of the grand conclusion to Arc 3, we're given some groundbreaking information regarding the ancestors of the spell trees, and even Bartleby himself. Arc 3 ends in an area called Husk, an area that's revealed to be Bartleby's original location back on the First World. My personal theory is that he used the same techniques the Tree Minders did to relocate himself to the Ravenwood after the worlds shattered. His time in the area now known as Husk meant that this was at one point the epicenter of all of the ley lines across the First World, and thus was coursing with magical energy. One of the effects of this was the creation of several groves of magical trees, the first of their kind. We meet some of these trees while we're playing through Husk, and it's here that we actually see for the first time astral trees. One tree for each of the 3 celestial magics. This was incredibly important because it confirms the existence of specific ley lines for sun, moon, and star energy. And now, this brings us to Selenopolis, the most recent addition of spell trees to the game, housed in an area of Krokotopia known as the Blended Grove. This Blended Grove is an incredibly rare occurrence, where 7 very potent ley lines converge at the exact same point in space, resulting in one massive tree imbued with the power of 7 different magical energies. This new area provides massive amounts of new lore points, especially involving the trees. Like I said before, this confirmed the fact that spell trees have an immunity to their element, when Fae Victus says, quote, "You are a magical tree, immune to the elements you are meant to channel." But we learned something else that is completely new information. Ley lines serve as a means of communication. Bartleby and the Tree Minders had the ability to physically travel through the ley lines, but Viv, the life tree, proves that they can also transport information. She says that she heard about us through her ley lines, and she also tells us that she knows about Mushu from her good friend Willow. Now, obviously Willow is a type of tree, so she's gossiping with another tree through the ley lines, a tree who we've never seen or heard of before. This is pretty huge, but I don't want to drag this video on longer than it needs to be, so I have a short out right now about my thoughts on Willow. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. There's just as much history about this topic as there are open ends, but I've done my best to explain any holes in the history for this video. I'm thinking about making a video just on the history of the Tree Minders, as well as talking about what might have happened to them after they fled their homeland. So let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in. I read every comment in my last video and tried to respond to most of them. I love the discussions and seeing things from you guys' perspectives, so I can't wait to get some cool conversations going for this one too. Definitely let me know if I missed anything or if you interpreted anything differently. But for now, I'll be signing off for today. I'll see you around the spiral.